Welcome to the Beginner's Guide to Gamification, episode number 7! I'm Chou, and I'm excited to get games started. In the last episode, we were in an analysis of the Waze app. In this episode, we would like to complete that process and analyze Waze through phases 3 and 4. Let's go ahead and do it! And that was our quick analysis for phase 2, the onboarding process. So now we update our Octalysis chart where we added in the social thanks, the humanity hero, the knights working together beating traffic, real-time intel, points of contribution. We get that all into the system. And then we are ready for scaffolding.
Now is the time for...
During scaffolding, people start to care more about the cool-looking avatars, about points, about the leaderboard, and about socializing with people. Scarcity and impatience occupies the user. I want to have that avatar I can't have! But more importantly, a sense of ownership and possession takes over. The user eventually learns that Waze is constantly learning about her preferences, her habits, her driving behavior, and she'll start to see pop-ups like, hey, would you like to go to work now? Because Waze knows she always goes to work at 9:30 to 10:30 in the morning. It also knows whether her favorite type of man is driving in the area and exactly where they are. Just kidding, Waze hasn't gotten into the geolocation dating market yet. But it'll be a neat idea, right? It's like, hey, check it out! There's an 82% match that's 3 blocks away that's willing to carpool to work. See, that's like perfect for busy professionals that only have time to date while they're driving to work. Plus, you usually get the second date very easily, usually on the same day, and oftentimes right after work. I'm loving it! Or better yet, billions and billions served. As we find out, Waze is learning more and more about ourselves. Eventually becomes my Waze, GPS that understands you and caters to your driving habits and experiences. By driving a lot with it, you have established a place for yourself in the world of Waze. Oh man, my feet are soaking wet. Yeah. And no one can replicate that. And at that point, you start using Waze more because you wanted to learn more about you. There's another little core drive that plays an effect here. Unpredictability and curiosity. When you see an alert about a cop or some trash on the side of the road, there's this interesting mindset to think, oh, I wonder if it's gonna be there when I drive to the place. And if you drive 10 more minutes and you see it there, you're like, yeah, it's there! And you get your endorphin shot. There's actually an entire reward loop structure for that type of pattern that we can see through the loot or drop system in various RPG games. Oh, sweet! Hello, Mr. Alien Zerg. How are you doing? Wait! What are you?
Now my arm is drinking water. It's very happy. It's not as efficient as my mouth, though. Bad delegation of tasks.
Now keep in mind, all this stuff is actually necessary for Waze because it's a user-generated product. It's not a product that functions well on its own. For it to be functional, you have to have a lot of users participating in it and contributing to it. Especially in new cities when there are not a lot of Wazers. I had a friend who once told me, I use Waze not because it has game mechanics or stuff like that. I use it because it's useful. And my response to that is that Waze is useful for people to consume the data, but not for people to contribute to the data pool. Like people fixing it, the people adding information about trash on the street or cars on the street. And in that sense, other GPS apps like Scout is even more accurate than Waze because it does not depend on user contribution. In fact, there were 3 times that I used Waze and it took me to the wrong place and I was late for between 10 to 40 minutes during my meetings. But the power of Waze is that it can get many of its users to say, "Oh crap, the map is broken. I need to fix it immediately so that other people don't go to the wrong place." They actually have to focus their design on user motivation and engagement to really make people go off their way to make your stuff better when you're failing them 3 times. So now let's go back to updating Octalysis for Phase 3, the Scaffolding Phase. You can see we now have avatar and personalized suggestion added to ownership and possession, as we talked about. And we added the core drives of unpredictability and curiosity, which now I call the Oracle effect. Basically trying to see if whether what is predicted will turn out to be true, and that's why you're motivated and engaged to do it. Now we will move on to the end game. The end game is when users have done everything there is to do at least once and are just doing everything and again and have been using Waze regularly for over a year, let's say. For these people, their sense of humanity hero is no longer with every driver on the street now, but to help new Wazers help every driver on the street. And at that point, since they have collected a ton of points without caring too much about them, they now can see how they are relatively close to something cool, and will try to reach for those hard-to-get virtual goods and status symbols. So now, instead of just reporting errors with the maps, they now start to fix the maps themselves so others won't get confused. They strike up more conversations with fellow Wazers and try to build a community. Moreover, they become evangelists for Waze and gets all their friends to sign up. And of course, Waze appeals heavily to the loss and avoidance core drive in the endgame because of all that massive knowledge that is built up in Waze about you. And people will keep using Waze to avoid the sunk cost tragedy, basically losing all the time invested into using Waze, and they don't want to just lose that. And as a result, Waze has a long-term retention rate for the endgame users. Of course, until they send you to the wrong place again. So now that we have all 8 core drives analyzed, let's try to plot it out now. As you can see, Waze has a pretty interesting structure where it's almost like a diamond shape. It's really strong on epic meaning and calling, accomplishment, ownership, social pressure, but it's extraordinarily weak on empowerment of creativity and feedback, as well as a scarcity. And so if we want to give a score to it, we add up the square of the value for each core drive, and we reach the number 244, which is Waze's Gamification Score. Now that we have everything plotted out, the most important thing is to change it to actionable steps. So I am going to share for a minute the things that I think can improve with Waze and make it more gamified. And this is just a quick video. These are all top of my head, so I'm not really doing a full consulting engagement with Waze. But here goes. Alright, let's check it out. So the first thing I think Waze should do is emphasize more on the narrative part, showing the knights beating the traffic monster. I noticed them taking this away recently, which is, I think, works to their disadvantage. For empowerment of creativity, I came up with something called a seller Waze, which is really getting users to try to find a new route that beats Waze's estimated time arrival. And that really allows people to think and use their creativity and try different things and see if they can beat Waze, right? And that makes things more engaging and allows for creativity. For social pressure, I mentioned in the video that we could have a carpool matching kind of functionality introduced, and that's going to increase their social value in different things.
And for unpredictability and curiosity, I thought it would be a really cool idea if a lot of Waze users can participate in flash mob, where everyone drives to a place and then they do something cool. For loss and avoidance, I think it would be a good idea to have people commit to streaking, which is giving them a streak of something if they use Waze on a daily basis or anything like that. And so if they stop for one day or stop for a week, whatever, they lose their streak, and people don't want to lose their streaks. For scarcity and patience, a little harder, but I was thinking that I just talked about a few other interesting functions, and maybe have users unlock some of them as they get to a higher level. And for ownership and possession, I think the Waze app wants to demonstrate more on how Waze is being personalized to their behavior. You want to show cute graphs of the data you collect and say, hey, this is for you. And then finally, for accomplishment development, I usually don't dive too much into PBL stuff because everyone's doing that, but I would just say they should adjust their candy eating settings because it's kind of annoying. And that, my friend, is my quick analysis based on Octalysis with Waze.
If you understood everything I talked about in this episode, then congratulations! You are now a level 1 Octalysis gamifier.
And this concludes this episode. I will see you next time, hopefully in a healthier position. Yeah.